Good day everyone. Today we will move on to our next topic, lesson 2, medieval philosophy. At the end of the lesson, we will able to answer two questions. Number 1, is the self related to a supreme being or God? And number 2, who am I in relation to a supreme being or God?
Medieval philosophy. The term medieval philosophy refers to the philosophy that prevailed during the Middle Ages, which generally spanned in the time from the fall of Western Roman Empire in the 5th century to the 13th and 14th century, following the Renaissance. The relationship between religion and reason, the existence and simplicity of God, the function of this theology and metaphysics, and the issues with knowledge, universals, and individuation are some of the issues that have been explored during this time. So, what type of philosophy is medieval philosophy? Well, the main philosophers of the medieval era were churchmen, and their work was strongly related to Christian thinking, especially theology. Philosophers' authorities reprimanded them when they deviated from this intimate relationship. What is the importance of medieval philosophy? Meanwhile, the synthesis of religion and reason has been achieved in medieval philosophy. It is also made a distinction between philosophy and religion, which led to the birth of new scientific fields. What is the concept of medieval? Medieval literally means of the Middle Ages, and its roots are Madi, which means middle, and Ev, which means age. The term middle in this context refers to the period following the fall of the great Roman state and before the rebirth of civilization that we refer as the Renaissance. So what influenced medieval philosophy? Christianity has the most profound non-philosophical impact on medieval philosophy throughout its 1,000-year history. Christian institutes support medieval intellectual life, and the scriptures and concepts of Christianity offer a wealth of philosophical reflection materials. Who is Saint Augustine? Perhaps the most influential Christian philosopher of antiquity was Augustine, who also had the greatest and longest-lasting impact. His authority in theological matters was widely acknowledged in the Latin Middle Ages and remained in the Western Christian tradition, essentially uncontested until the 19th century. He is a saint of the Catholic Church, and it is very difficult to overstate the influence of his ideas, especially on sexuality, freedom, grace, and sin on Western civilization, deeply at odds with historic intellectual and cultural traditions. So these views drew scorching condemnation during Augustine's lifetime and have once more faced ferocious oppositions in the 20th and 21st centuries from a variety of perspectives. For example, humanist, liberal, feminist, and whatsoever. So philosophers continue to find this tranquility groundbreaking and through his theories on language.
Identity can be achieved with these questions. How does one seek union with God? The harder you seek, the more distance you create between Him and you. So what does one do about the distance? Understand that it isn't there. Does that mean that God and I are one? Not two. How is that possible? The sun and its light, the ocean and the wave, the singer and his song. Not one, not two. Identity may be very subjective since each one of us has different beliefs and perspectives. So it's up to you how you define yourself and who do you think you are.
Modern philosophy.
is a philosophy developed in the modern era and associated with modernity. It is a period of radical social, political, and intellectual developments. It focused on issues of knowledge, skepticism, justification, rationalism, and reliance on science. It also refers to the way of people gather and confirm knowledge through direct experiences and logic. According to the module, the mark of the beginning and the end of modern philosophy was from 14th century to early 20th century. But from the information that I have, it stated that 17th century to the early 20th century is roughly the mark of the beginning and the end of modern philosophy. And most likely, the reason for it was because of René Descartes, the father of modern philosophy. Likewise, it was also stated that modernity may or may not have ended in the 20th century and been replaced by postmodernity. Anthropocentrism is the most common philosophical viewpoint in the modern philosophy, arguing that human beings are the central or most significant entities in the world. Thinkers began to reject scholastic excessive reliance on authority. Scholastics, a person who adopts academics or traditional method of art or way of thinking. Genuine knowledge has to be based on independent, rational inquiry and real-world experimentation, rather than dependent on knowledge handed down by authorities. René Descartes, a rationalist, was a French philosopher, scientist, and mathematician. He was the father of modern philosophy, father of analytic geometry, and one of the key figures in science revolution. He was also the founder of 17th century continental rationalism together with Spinoza and Leibniz. They became a rationalist and started the age of reason. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am, is his best philosophical statement in self, found in his Discourse on the Method and Principle of Philosophy. He rejected the splitting of corporeal substance into matter and form. He also rejected any appeal to final ends, divine or natural, in explaining natural phenomena. Descartes' signature doctrine and permits other theories to advance, known as Cartesian dualism or mind-body dualism. His theory on the separation between the mind and the body went to influence subsequent Western philosophies. The spiritual self, governed by the laws of reason and God's will, surpasses the physical self, governed by the laws of nature. Yet, the intimate connection between the soul and the body is undeniable.
John was a British philosopher and was an academic and medical researcher. He was one of the greatest philosophers in Europe at the end of the 17th century. For John, the human mind at birth is tabula or blank, but primarily because of experience through people's sense like visual, hearing, smell, taste, and feel, it shapes and molds the self through a person's life. That's why for Locke, conscious awareness and memory of previous experience are the key to understand the self. David was born in Edinburgh and spent his childhood in Ninewell. According to Hume, there is no self. There are only two distinct entities, the impression and ideas. In impression, basic sensation of our experience, the elemental data of our minds. Pain, pleasure, heat, cold, happiness, grief, exhilaration, and so on. And in ideas, copies the impression less lively and vivid, includes thoughts and images that are built up for primary impression through a variety of relationships. According to Immanuel Kant, we construct the self. We each have fundamental organizing rules on principle built into the architecture of our minds.
Sigmund Freud, an Australian neurologist born in 1856, known as the father of modern psychology, founder of psychoanalysis, a method of treating mental and emotional disorders by allowing the patient to talk about themselves and their experiences, problems, and early childhood and dreams. It is a treatment for mental illness at the same time explains human behavior. Gilbert Ryle, a British philosopher, is the author of the concept of mind. He argued that the body exists in space and time, yet the mind only exists in time and not in space, and therefore can't be seat of self. Self comes from behavior. Paul Churchland, an American philosopher, is known for his theory of dualism. He states that we all have a physical brain, but we also have a separate mind. Adding to this distinction, dualists have theory asserted the mind is the seat of our consciousness because it is what gives us our identity.
We have here Edmund Husserl. So Edmund Husserl is one of the most important philosophers of the 20th century. Primarily the originator of phenomenology and made contributions to nearly all branches of philosophy like linguistics, sociology, and cognitive psychology. So Edmund Husserl, born on April 8, 1859 in Prossnitz, Moravia, Austrian Empire. He died on April 27, 1938 in Freiburg, Germany. So he is known for his analysis of intentionality, perception, temporality, embodiment, and intersubjectivity. Next is Maurice Merleau-Ponty. So Maurice is born on March 19, 1908 in province of Charente-Maritime, and he died on May 21, 1961 in Paris, France. He is a French philosopher and public intellectual and a leading academic proponent of existentialism and phenomenology in post-war France. Ponty played a central role in the dissemination of phenomenology, which he sought to integrate with Gestalt psychology, psychoanalysis, Marxism, and Saussurean linguistics. Ponty is known for his original and influential work on embodiment, perception, and ontology. So what is embodied subjectivity? So embodied subjectivity works on making the claim that the physical body includes the self and perception. So it refers to the ways in which people have a felt sense of their bodies, desires, and sexual feelings in ways that they don't always fit with traditional of sex, gender, or heterosexuality.